Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. This is our week 4 garden tour for 2022. And as you can see, all of the snow from last week is pretty much completely gone. There's a little baby remnant somewhere in the frame of the snowman that I made. But everything is pretty much melted, and now we can actually look at the plants and see how they fared through all of that storm. Miss Kada really enjoyed the snow. She ran around in it, had a good time. Much more adventurous than Mr. Draco. Well, here's the remnants of the snow person. So we can go ahead and start on the right side of the garden, I guess. The fava beans are not looking great. They are not looking totally dead, but they did not like that snow. I think quite a few of them, like this here, got crispy. I think they got bent up by the snow and then ended up getting cut off and dying. Here's another one that's a little crunchy, but they're not dead. I've been seeing, like, right here at the bottoms, they keep growing new sprouts. And so I'm thinking eventually I might get something out of them. Oh yeah, here's some more that does not look so great, but then next to it, like, this looks pretty much fine. These I had really hoped would grow a little faster and be able to be tied up to this trellis. I'm wondering if they actually do need more support, because even before the snow I had kind of noticed a few branches laying down here and there. Oh yeah, look at all of this, just kind of flattened. You can see where it was bent, it's all floppy. Under here are actually some onions in the middle. Those don't look so bad. I mean, they're a little floppy too, but the onions I trust more to come back from this than the fava beans, because onions I've overwintered before and seen that they do recover from this sort of thing. If we take a look at the spinach, it looks perfectly fine. It is really meant for cold weather, so I wasn't too worried about spinach. And this purple lettuce, I think this is Merlot, definitely not feeling great in these leaves here at the bottom, but this leaf, this new one, feels nice and crisp and healthy. But these other lettuces that were not looking so great before still aren't looking super great, although this one that was bigger has some nicer crisp leaves coming up in the middle, so maybe it'll still recover. And if we come all the way down here to the kohlrabi, this part is supposed to be like the big kohlrabi that roots up, and these look fine mostly. I mean, they don't look super happy, but they look all right. Look at this radish here. This got big really fast. That's an icicle radish, I think. I'm noticing that a lot of the radishes are like growing bigger roots and still have like tiny tops. And I'm not entirely sure why that might be, but it is a consistent trend that I've seen with the radishes coming up. This potted cilantro that I have, this one started going to seed before all the snow stuff, so I chopped off the seed stalks. And coming out of the snow, it's not dead, but it's certainly looking very unhappy. And luckily I have a bunch of new sprouts that have come up that will hopefully be good cilantro sources for me. These 2 rows of brassicas, the older row and the newer row, neither one of them looks very flushed out, but they're not as bad as they could be. So this purple cabbage, I really thought it was going to die. Its leaves look awful, but it's still making new ones. And like this leaf right here, this is still an okay leaf. It's photosynthesizing and I guess helping the plant grow some newer, better leaves now that it's gotten on board with the okay, it's cold now. If you haven't seen the last few garden tours, we dealt with a very weird period of warm in the middle of December, long enough to where the plants thought it was suddenly spring again, which is why that cilantro went to seed. And then it decided it was going to be very suddenly cold again. And I think a lot of the plants got very confused, and I think that's why this cabbage and a lot of the other plants look the way they do, not because of the snow, but because of that cold snap that they just were not ready for. All my garlic is looking pretty great though. You can see some of the leaves not so happy, but overall, like, all of the garlics came through this looking really good. I think this one might have been knocked over or something. So some of these other cabbages and broccolis down the row, not dead, but very, very unhappy and a little slower to put on those nice new leaves. And so these, I am much less sure that they will make a comeback and actually give me anything, but at this point I have no reason to pull them out, so might as well wait and see. Oh, hello, Kata. I don't know if you guys can see how dug up the dirt is around here, but I think the cats have decided that this is like their new favorite spot to poop, and I'm not entirely sure how to dissuade them, besides maybe putting down fresh wood chips at some point so that it's very uncomfortable for them to dig in. These Brussels sprouts back here are the only plants, the only big brassicas that I started from seed that actually look okay. They have grown a fair bit, and you know, maybe they will start making little Brussels sprouts soon. But all the leaves feel pretty good, even though some of them are a little wilty. For the most part, they're doing a lot better than, say, these broccolis that are all but dead. Very, very unhappy little broccoli plants. We can quick take a look at this trellis where the peas are, where some of them are good and dead, not coming back, but I mean, this one on the end, I don't know if there's really hope for this guy or not. I think pretty soon I'm gonna plant some new peas, and they will grow up with the cold from the start, and they will not get shocked the way these guys did. You know what's really doing well though is the turnips. I think turnips are gonna be my biggest harvest for this winter garden. Look at how happy this row of turnips looks. I pulled a little bit from them a few weeks ago, and I've been waiting to harvest again so that I can make a big beef stew. I don't know if you guys can really see down in there. Those roots, some of them are getting pretty big, and I am excited to actually be able to cook from the garden again. It's been a minute. Here's another one of those radishes. You can see the difference in the way the leaves are from this versus that. Now, radishes of course are smaller, but I feel like the leaves are extra scraggly on these guys. Oh. So we're now on the other side of the turnips to look at the rutabagas. And you can see some of these roots getting pretty large. I am actually, ooh, look at this one. Actually, pretty excited about the cold weather for these guys, because the cold weather, again, is what really stimulates them to bulb up and start storing all of that energy in their roots. So if we check out the last row of the garden here, the Brussels sprouts and cauliflower that I got as starts from the botanical gardens, looking pretty good. These had started out blown over from this big windstorm we had a few weeks ago, So the snow, I cannot blame for most of this. I think there's the windstorm and then a few of these leaves not looking great, but again, you can see there's new stuff in the middle. And that's really what we like to see. We like to see that it is still trying and making new leaves. Let's go check on this one that was starting to make Brussels sprouts. Yeah, look at that. Those are like actually little Brussels sprouts. They're not very tight. They're very loose little sprouts, but they exist. And this plant looks pretty good. It's a little yellow, but otherwise not looking too bad. The way that it's yellowing, I would almost think nutrient deficiency, but that doesn't make very much sense because back when I put in the berry patch, I had a little extra compost and I just spread it over here. Specifically, I spread it on these ones down here. So either it's not a nutrient deficiency or there was something weird about that compost. Now, the compost I got was from the people that I got the compost for this whole garden for this garden, and it was great. I have no reason to believe that the place I got my compost from would have given me bad compost. So I gotta start looking into what else could be causing the tops of every single Brussels sprout to be a little yellow. The color difference on the cauliflower, though, that makes sense. These are graffiti cauliflower, so these like purplish leaves in the center are like what I would expect, given that it's supposed to be a purple cauliflower at the end. So now that it's not covered in snow, you can see the swale a little better here. It is kind of deep, like taller than my boots, and we dug out a lot of rocks as we were doing this, so I've started kind of collecting them and putting them down here in the bottom. I undoubtedly will dig up more rocks as I garden, so I will keep adding to that. And then for this mound here, I am planning on seeding some clover and kind of packing it down a little better. Right now it's just kind of loose dirt, but hopefully we can have some clover holding this all together into the right shape. And if you don't know why I dug this trench the way I did, let me back up here, backing up. Okay, so you can see, maybe you can't on the camera, but from the road down, this is a little bit of a hill through the garden. And when I moved in, this area right where I'm standing was just a giant like water runoff trench of clay. And I think it went all the way down this way because of construction and bare ground and all of that. And I kind of thought maybe once the grass grows and once I have all this mulch in place and the path and everything, maybe this water runoff won't actually be that big of a deal. Maybe because of all the vegetation, it will just soak in. However, that's not what happened. We had maybe the biggest storm we've had since I moved in here, and the water ran through the garden and definitely dug some, not as bad, but still like little trenches through the garden because it was just running down this hill so fast. And so I have dug this trench here, this swale, as a sort of speed bump for the water. So water runs down, gets caught in here, is forced to be still in contact with the dirt for longer than it would be if it was just going real fast across the top. And hopefully it being forced to collect and stay still will give it a chance to soak in instead of running all the way down the hill. And I'm planning on putting at least one, maybe two more in here, just in between the trees, not the full length of the garden, but just kind of smaller speed bumps, so to speak, for the water, so that it has a chance to collect and soak into the ground rather than just running across the top of it. And the fact that I have this tree here is actually really helpful for that, because the tree's roots will sort of help guide the water down through the ground, and theoretically, this swale being here the way it is should really help water soak into the ground directly under the garden. So it's kind of dual purpose here. Not that I really need a whole lot of extra water, because I didn't have to water the garden at all last year because of these wood chips. I'm thinking I might move away to a different mulch, but that's another story. So this tree being here is good for helping all of this water soak in, and this being here is good for helping stop those huge torrents of water just running straight down the hill. Now, whether or not I've made it big enough, that remains to be seen. And I'm really hoping that it's a while before we have a rain that big, so that the mound of dirt can actually have a chance to kind of compact and get seeded and like rooted in place somehow. I think our big storm season is going to be March and April. So right now it is January. I mean, it's not the time when things are really growing, but I think there's definitely some time for some weeds and clover and whatever to start putting out roots into that dirt. Just a quick look at this raised bed. My little baby cilantros came through the snow just fine and are continuing to grow at a slow rate, but you know, they're getting there. Oregano looks great. Sage looks great. Parsley looks great. Thyme, all of these look great. Stevia was dead before. Will come back in the spring from its roots. And in the meantime, I'm leaving these sticks here for the bugs. Alrighty, and that is the garden tour for this week. If you want to catch up on garden tours, I'm going to link the playlist here. And if you are curious, I have the playlist for every single year's worth of garden tours. So if you are bummed out by all the winter weather, you can go back and look at all of the beautiful lushness of previous gardens. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you again very soon, but until then, happy gardening.